A lot of people, I mean, it's subculture. So by its very definition, there's going to be a lot of people listening to this show that aren't familiar with that. And just, and I'll get to Death to the World, of course, but that's initially, I see, pictures like this, and immediately I'm taken back to zines and Maximum Rock and Roll and things that I grew up looking at and reading and seeing. Can you kind of describe what that subculture was like, and certainly the vibe around Gilman Street with Rancid and Operation Ivy and all of these things that I know will mean a lot to some of the people listening, as it does to me. But for those who aren't familiar, it's like subculture. What are you talking about? What's this East Bay punk scene? Kind of explain what the overall vibe and environment was like with that.
Sure. There's probably different interpretations of that. But my takeaway from it was there was a pretty much an absolute rejection of the status quo and of the conventions of the world, because most of us, saw the conventions of the world as being fake, false, full of all that glitters is gold, and empty pursuits that end up with unhappiness, Stepford Wives, Disneyland, all this stuff just ended up nowhere. And so I think there was a backlash, and I think that backlash started in the 60s, and the people from the 60s had kids, and those kids became punk to rebel against the hippie deal. But yeah, the counterculture really grew out of a rejection of the norms of American culture and American life, and punk rock especially is there. Like, if you trace it even back to the Sex Pistols in England, their rejection of the status quo, the crown, everything there. It's the same thing. And I think that we band together as young people to try to figure out a different way to view the world that's more authentic and less fake. And I think that's where the Dead Kennedys come from. That's where I know Minor Threat comes from, all that. And a lot of these other bands, including Operation Ivy, whom I'm good friends with. They're not a band anymore, but they're still around. It was all a rejection of all of that, trying to find a purpose and trying to find a deeper meaning. And the part that frustrated me is being raised with Christian values, with religion. That was the one area in the counterculture that was not kind of allowed. They would tolerate Buddhism, I guess, and some other, sort of Eastern religions. But when it came down to it, that was the one part about the counterculture. It was a rejection against the worldviews that involved religion. And I had religion in my soul, and it didn't, I couldn't, the two weren't compatible for me. And I struggled with that because I liked the rejection of the world, but I also saw God as being the solution to the world's problems.